greatest sports debate show on the internet.
Jalen Carter does not dive for his knee.
He grabbed his knee, though, which was
a dirty play. That was a football play.
You don't get to talk anymore.
Football play.
You don't get to talk anymore, sir.
Championship rings, starring Brandon Lewis.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions, and welcome to Championship Rings.
And Josh Ungar.
Buddy. So, who was right about the Indiana Pacers making it to the conference finals?
Well, let's see. Jalen Brunson gets hurt, and Alex Burke gets hurt, and Mitchell Robinson gets hurt, and Josh Hart gets hurt. You have the easiest road to the Eastern Conference Finals this side of the Boston Celtics. So, were you right, or was it the NBA gods saying, let Josh Ungar be the only person in the world to pick the Indiana Pacers?
Nope, I was right from the beginning.
Begins now.
Streaming live on YouTube at Championship Rings 216, on YouTube at the Unger to the Max YouTube channel, and on Twitch at VOLTAAGE_live, Voltage Live. This is episode 68 of Championship Rings. I'm Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. My co-host is Josh Ungar from the Unger to the Max, the host of the Sports Room Talk Show. Unger, I don't remember a show where we've had this much diversity in terms of sports in our rundown.
That's true, and we're kicking things off with our Cleveland Cavaliers. Tonight, they are in Orlando, taking on Paolo Banchero and the Orlando Magic. And then on Friday, they head to TD Garden to take on the reigning defending NBA champion Boston Celtics, which just so happens to be the two teams they played in the NBA playoffs last season. Of course, we took out the Magic in 7 games in round 1 and then lost to the Celtics in 5 games in the second round. But I'll tell you this, those two series had more than just the regular playoffs on the line. Because do you think I forgot about the 2009 Eastern Conference Finals when we got eliminated by Dwight Howard, Hedo Turkoglu, Rashard Lewis, Jameer Nelson, Rayford Alston? No, I do not.
Who's Rayford Alston? I'm serious. I don't remember Rayford Alston.
He was on the 2009 Orlando Magic. And then with the Boston Celtics, do you think I've forgotten 2010 and 2008? Nope, I have not. So I view both of those series as revenge for 2009 and then 2008 and 2010.
See, you old sports grudges from like decades in the past. I look at it as eras. So to me, that 2024 matchups with the Cavs against the Magic and Celtics have nothing to do with getting revenge from 2009 and 2010, because in those days we had LeBron James, Larry Hughes, Antoine Jameson. The Celtics had Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. You mentioned who Orlando had on those teams. Those guys are ancient dinosaurs pretty much by now in the NBA, most of them at least.
That's true, but I'm not the type of guy to forgive and forget. Like, I'm telling you, Celtics Cavs is one of the best rivalries in the NBA right now, if not the best. I would put Thunder Timberwolves up there right now.
I don't think there is a rivalry in the NBA. I don't think the NBA players believe in rivalries anymore. I've said it, and I have been saying it.
Well, I strongly disagree with you there. But anyway, so we do have these 2 playoff rematches. Both are on the road. We got Orlando tonight. We're seeking our 8th straight win after 2 impressive victories against the Knicks and Grizzlies. Man, the Knicks have been in a tailspin.
Yeah, you were so worried. For those viewers last week, Josh was very concerned about this stretch, and I said the Cavs are going to at least go 3-2 in this stretch, and they're already 3-0.
Yeah, I was. And it'd be great if we can at least go 4-1. Although I don't want to lose the regular season series 3-1 against Boston, because that that won't make me feel good if we match up with them in the conference finals. I understand that regular season has no effect on the postseason, but knowing that we lost 3-1 against them, it would waver my confidence going against them in a potential conference finals should that play out. Maybe I'm reading too much into the regular season stuff, but that's just how I am sometimes. But in terms of Orlando, this is our second game of the season against them, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
And they've been banged up all year. Pablo Banchero just came back. Jalen Suggs is still out for them. They're not as good. I know the Wagner brothers missed some time earlier in the year.
One of them is out for the season.
Yeah. And so to me, like, they're not as good as they were a year ago. Like, this is a completely different Orlando team that we faced in April of last year. And it is a completely different Cavs team because the Cavs actually have a confident offense, and it looks like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen have actually reached their potential of being physical.
Yes. By the way, I was right. This is our second meeting of the season with the Magic. We beat them earlier, 120-109, back on November 1st. This is our
that was a very early matchup. This is our first trip down to Orlando, though, right?
Yes, and it's our only trip to Orlando this season because our last game against them will be March 16th here in Cleveland. And then Friday in Boston will mark the fourth and final game of the regular season series between the two teams. I put more weight on the Boston game because we are the top two teams in the Eastern Conference. However, Orlando is one of those teams that we could possibly match up with in the first round because they are currently the number 7 seed, which puts them in the play-in tournament.
It looks very likely to me it's going to be Orlando, Miami, or Atlanta.
Of those teams, I do not want to play Atlanta. No,
see, I would love to play Atlanta. I don't care if they beat us twice. I know they have some shooters, but that team is small. Outside of they don't have a big. They're very reliant on 3-point shooting. You could physical up Trae Young in the postseason. I think it'd be a completely different series if we played them 4 times in 7 games.
My guess is we're going to end up playing Miami in the first round, which I don't
Which without Jimmy Butler, I mean, they're showing themselves. Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero are their 2 best players. That should honestly be a 4 or 5 game sweep for a Cavalier team. I'll be honest with you, Josh. I don't put much weight into either of these 2 games. Barring a collapse, the Cavs are going to be the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They're still up 5.5 games on the Celtics. Even if we lose to Boston, we'll still be 4.5 games up with the time that's remaining, about a month left and a half in the regular season. That's not a huge lead, but the way the Cavs have been playing, it's a good enough substantial lead that they should have the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and that's the only thing I care about.
Yeah, because if we get to a Game 7 against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, having the number 1 seed would be huge because that would
It's not even about that. I would just rather have Boston play New York in the second round than us because I think the Knicks are locked into the 3 seed.
Yeah, the Knicks are a distant 3 seed, though.
Oh, yeah. There are only 4 teams in the NBA that can win the championship this year. There's 2 in the East. I could make an argument for 5. I'll get into that in our next segment. There's 2 in the East, and there's 1 clear in the West, and I think you can make an argument for potentially 2 more. But I think the East is a 2-horse race.
I would agree with you. If I had to guess, we're going to end up playing Milwaukee in the second round, which I could see that being a 6 or 7 game
Well,
series.
here's the thing. Do we even know? I mean, think about the last 2 postseasons for Milwaukee. Giannis has been hurt. And I don't know what Milwaukee is. I don't know what to expect from Milwaukee anymore. To me, they're not a championship team. They're a weird team. I don't even know if they're going to get out of the first round.
I think if the season were to start today, let me double check.
I think they play Indiana.
Yes, that is correct. They would play Indiana.
And Indiana beat them last year in the postseason.
But check this out. Detroit is only a game behind Indiana.
But as I keep saying, what do we know about the Pistons? Who's their coach? I don't care how they do in the regular season. We know who their freaking postseason coach is, Josh.
That's true. That would be an interesting series if it was New York against Detroit in the
Oh,
first
New
round.
York would kill him. Kill him. It'd be a 4-game sweep. I bet a Dr. Pepper bottle, if that was the series, that it would be a 4-game sweep. I'm that confident.
I'm not disagreeing, but I do think it would be an interesting series regardless. But
What would be an interesting series to watch the Cavs' former coach get his ass kicked because he couldn't reach the potential of Evan Mobley?
Anyway, Evan Mobley's going to be the key for me in these 2 games against the Magic.
I agree with you 100%. Evan Mobley needs to become a man, not a boy, a man. And I'm not talking about games against the Wizards and the Nets and the Hawks and the Hornets. I'm talking about these big boy. If you want to call them regular season meaningful games, this is as meaningful as a regular season game as you're going to get.
Yeah, because tonight you're going against Paolo Banchero, who we saw in the first round last year is
I would make the argument, I know, and I could understand that you're going to say it was Donovan Mitchell, but I could make a legit argument that in that playoff series last year, Pablo Banchero was the best player on the court.
I would hear your argument about that for sure. I think I would give the slight edge to Donovan Mitchell, but I think I would make it like 51-49.
I think it's, the fact that it's that close should again tell you how embarrassing it should have been, because that shouldn't even have been a series. We let Orlando grow up last year, and Orlando was supposed to take a step up. Now, I think, again, this year it has to do more with injuries. I mentioned, the Wagner brothers being out. Banchero was out for a while. Jalen Suggs is still out. So, I don't know, man. Orlando's a very weird team that kind of wrapped my arms around this year, but I just think we're completely better.
Orlando, I'm surprised they didn't make any moves at the trade deadline. That I was kind of thinking they were going to go out and get somebody.
Well, but they have a bunch of young guys. The thing they're trying to build. They're a year ahead of schedule.
Yeah, but still, we saw what Orlando was last year. But
again, once you get the injuries, Banchero was out the 3rd game of the year. So they're kind of like, okay, what are we going to do?
Right, but they're still right there in the mix for the playoffs.
Yeah, but they're not really contenders. And I think they know that no matter what move they made. Unless they went out and got Kevin Durant, that's the only real difference maker that they could have really gotten.
Yeah, and I don't think Durant would have wanted to go there. But in terms of Boston, yeah. Oh, God, that last home game against the Celtics, Kristaps Porzingis deserves a Grammy, or an Oscar, I should say, for his acting job. He should go to Broadway when he's done with the NBA. That's how good he was.
I think the bottom line was the Cavs bench didn't come to play in that game, and the Cavs shot poorly, and that's going to happen in some games.
It wasn't just the bench, though. It was Evan Mobley didn't play well in that game.
No, but when you don't get barely any production from a Sam Merrill, a Ty Jerome, like that's what makes the Cavs team so good this year, their depth.
Evan Mobley had 7 points. Max Strus had 2. That's not.
And again, that to me is the story. You got, outside of Mitchell and Garland, someone's got to step up.
Yes, and you're talking about the bench. Niang, who was still with us at that time, 6 points. LeVert, 0. Ty Jerome, 8. The only one who showed up was Sam Merrill with 12.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a move that was made at the trade deadline, Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers, who tonight will put on a show and put the Dallas Mavericks in their place. What a performance Saturday night against a team they previously could not beat in the Denver Nuggets. And this was the showing, and this was the thing that Laker Nation, the Lake Show fans, needed to see to say, hey, we are now a legitimate NBA Finals contender, at least Western Conference Finals contender.
Yeah, for sure. If they can sneak up into that 5 seed and possibly match up with Houston, they could win that series.
Yeah, I agree. I think, the West has a bunch of good teams that are young. Your Memphises, your Houstons. I think they're really good teams, but I think they're too young to win a championship this year. So, in my opinion, I think the Lakers, again, tremendous showing of what they had on Saturday night. Luka Doncic being the quarterback of the team, if you will, LeBron being the wide receiver of the team, if you will, them playing off each other, and the way they dominated Denver, the way they did, to me, this is a regular season game where you take a look at that if you're the Lakers and you say, okay, if we do match up with Denver potentially in the second round, this could go differently than what it has in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, for sure. But it's not just Luka. Granted, it would have been great if that trade had worked out with Charlotte. I don't know what all happened with that. But, they got Austin Reeves playing well. They got Rui playing well. Another player they acquired, Dorian Finney-Smith, is playing well for them. And they may not have a true big, but they, made Nikola Jokic uncomfortable in that game Saturday night.
And that's what they're going to have to do because they don't have a true big. Now, it would worry me a little bit that 4 times in 7 games you got to deal with Jokic as opposed to a one-off. I think that's a different issue. But I think here's the thing about Denver, and I said this at the end of the Minnesota series. Remember, that was the series we disagreed on the most in the postseason last year. Denver, just for whatever reason, I don't know. It's like out of the championship, they've sort of rested on their morals. And it's kind of Jokic and Jamal Murray or bust. I like Denver. I think they can be a championship team. I just don't know if they have enough depth to deal with the likes of Oklahoma City. I think they have probably the best player in the world right now in Nikola Jokic. But if Nikola Jokic is not spectacular, if they don't have the deep bench that they had a few years ago, which now the Lakers have.
Yeah. Which I think if the Lakers match up with OKC in a possible conference finals, the Lakers could possibly win that series. Granted, OKC has the 2 bigs in in Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. But here's my question. Does OKC have enough tread on the tires, for lack of better phrasing, in terms of playoff experience?
I don't think that necessarily matters when your team is as deep, as young as Oklahoma City, and they got it last year. And usually in the NBA, when you flame out the year before and you're as good as you are the next year, you learn from that experience. I think Oklahoma City just has too many young, good players, and I think in a 7-game series, I love this LeBron, Luka, Laker team, but you mentioned a guy like Rui, like Dorian Finney-Smith. If they don't give you 4 or 5 really good games, if they're inconsistent, the Lakers are going to have a really hard time scoring and running up and down the court with Oklahoma City for 48 minutes.
I do think the Lakers would have the 2 best players in that series.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
But here's the thing. The Thunder would have the MVP on their side because I think SGA should have won MVP last year, and I think he's going to win MVP this season as Brandon's head has disappeared, and I guess he's the invisible man now.
No, it's the virtual background cut off my head. I guess I was leaning back into the screen because I was thinking, now that you mentioned MVP, I was like, you know what? We haven't even talked about the NBA MVP this year at all, period.
No, we haven't. I think that's mostly because the NFL has dominated the airwaves for obvious reasons. But, Denver has the reigning MVP. And yet, like I said, the Lakers kind of control them even though they don't have a true big man.
Yeah, Jokic is getting to the LeBron point where it's like he could win MVP every single year and you wouldn't argue. Listen, I predicted SGA to win MVP before the year, and I predicted the Thunder to not only make the NBA Finals but win it. And I think you can make the real argument right now that SGA is probably the most valuable player in the NBA.
Yeah, which I want to throw this topic in. It's not in the rundown, but did you watch that Thunder Timberwolves game on? I think it was on Sunday where
I watched highlights of it. I did not watch the whole thing, but I heard both those contests were crazy.
okay, so OKC comes home and blows like a 20-point lead, I believe it was, last night. Don't quote me on that, but I think it was like a 20-point lead. Does that give you concerns about Oklahoma City and their legitimacy as the number one seed?
No, because they've done this all year long. They've had one or couple bad games this year. It's going to happen in the NBA. In the NBA now, we are seeing more blowouts and we are seeing more comebacks than ever because if you get up from three, you can beat anybody on any given night.
Okay, so would you say in that game, I know you didn't watch it, and I didn't really watch it either because I was at the Monsters game last night, but anyway, would you say that game was, knowing what you know about the game, would you say it was more about Minnesota's comeback or Oklahoma City's collapse?
I would say it was more about Minnesota's comeback. I think Minnesota earned that comeback because of what they started on the defensive side of the floor, leading defense into offense.
Okay. So then here's my next question. If you had to choose right now, you're the general manager. Are you building your team? Excuse me.
Around SGA or Ant? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be honest with you. I think the answer is pretty clear. Actually, I think it's SGA. I think SGA is more of a winning player.
Okay.
I think Anthony Edwards is stat padding this year.
Whoa. You think Anthony Edwards is just stat padding?
Yes.
Really?
I think he's taking a lot of free pointers. I think he's taking a lot of bad shots when the T-Wolves are down, and they clearly are not the best team without Karl-Anthony Towns. We all tried to appoint Anthony Edwards as the next Michael Jordan, basically, last year in the Western Conference Finals. And guess what? He fell flat on his face against Luka Doncic and did not show up in that series. It's whatever cough I've had over the last couple of weeks is apparently gone to you.
Yeah. This cough is not going away, so I apologize about that. That's why I've had to mute a couple times. But, man, this is such a hard question. I don't think it's as clear-cut as you're making it.
I think it's clear-cut. I think that Anthony Edwards this year, I mean, look at his shot attempts, Josh. I'm going to read to you. These are his last 10 game shot attempts. 28, 25, February 8th, he did not play. 28, 33, 18. February 16th was the All-Star game. He did not play. 32, 21, 15, and that's the last 10 games. I mean, think about, he's got 3 games on here with over 30 shot attempts, and he's got 4 more games with over 25 shot attempts a game.
By the way, it was a 25-point deficit that Minnesota rallied from to beat Oklahoma City in OKC. Just for clarification on that one.
Now, you look at SGA's shot attempts. 20, 24, 16, 5, 21, 22, 20, 26, which I don't love. 12 on February 7th against the Raptors. So, and by the way, he is not shooting a ton of threes a game. He's shooting about, between 5 and 6 a game. His assist number is pretty consistent, about 8 every night. So to me, he's just been a more consistent player, especially this year.
Okay, I hear your argument on that. But if SGA was not on the Thunder, I would still consider them, like a play.
See, but I hate this conversation. I hate when we try to take one player off one team and put him on another team. because
No, I'm
every
not trying
player.
to put SGA on Minnesota. No. I'm not going there. I'm not saying they should trade teams. I'm just saying, I was just going to say, if you take both of them off their respective teams, do you think Minnesota would have made it to the conference finals last year? No, I don't think they would have even made the playoffs, honestly. If you take SGA off the Thunder,
They're not a playoff team.
I think OKC could still hang around in that like play-in tournament.
Okay, as what, a 10 or 11 seed, not even a real playoff team. Think about the drop off. You go from maybe, and I mean maybe, at the bottom of the West is really bad, a potential 10 seed to get into the play-in tournament, to being the undisputed best team in basketball, especially in the Western Conference.
That's true. But if you're going by that logic, you got to throw John Morant into the discussion, because look at how Memphis has taken off since he's gotten there.
Yeah, John Morant has been great, but he hasn't proven it in the postseason. I got to say, Oklahoma City was just too young last year to deal with Dallas, but they gave Dallas more of a fight than SGA had a better series in that series against Dallas than Anthony Edwards did.
That part is true. I'll give you that. Outside of our series against Orlando, I thought the Dallas OKC series was the most entertaining in the postseason last year.
Yeah, I mean, those were the only two good series. That's it.
Yeah. Even like the New York Indiana series wasn't that great because of the injuries and whatnot.
Shall we talk about this interesting story about the Golden State Warriors retiring the jersey number of Andre Iguodala, 2015 NBA Finals MVP?
Yeah. I thought this was interesting, and that's why I wanted to include it in tonight's show. Because, like, I don't think Iguodala's going to end up in the Hall of Fame. I mean,
he probably will, because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. They give if Draymond Green's a Hall of Famer, Iggy's a Hall of Famer. If Russell Westbrook is a Hall of Famer, this guy's a Hall of Famer.
Fair.
If James Harden's a Hall of Famer, this guy is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing it. What I'm telling you is everybody tries to tell me those guys are Hall of Famers. If those guys are Hall of Famers, then this guy is.
So, what was your reaction to the Warriors retiring Iguodala's jersey? Did you agree with it? Like, were you...
You know, at first you're like, Iggy, like, huh? Like, it kind of feels like, does he really deserve to get his jersey retired? And then you sit back and you think about it and you go, well, he did win the 2015 Finals MVP. Excuse me. And he was a huge inaugural part of that Golden State Warrior run that they went to 5 straight NBA Finals with. So for the team specifically, yes, I do not have a problem with them retiring his number.
Okay.
I think it's very similar to, like, I think Tristan Thompson should get his number retired by the Cavs. And I agree. I think those two guys have very similar impact for those two organizations.
I agree with you. Also, I think if the Warriors hadn't put Iguodala into the starting lineup going into Game 4 of the 2015 Finals, Golden State might have lost that series, even though we were without Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. I mean, LeBron, that was the best series of LeBron's career. Hands down.
Yeah. And, like, you know, Iguodala ended up winning Finals MVP because of his defense that he played on LeBron. He became one of those LeBron stoppers. Is anybody a true LeBron stopper? No, because he's going to get his for the most part. I know he's had games where he doesn't get his big numbers, but for the most part, he's going to get his 20 to 30 points a game. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. But it was just a little bit strange when they announced it. You're like, wait, what? Like, it didn't make sense at first when I first heard about this. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I just said. And then you got to sit back and you got to think and you go, Andre Iguodala, and even outside of Golden State, he's had an incredible career. But Golden State, I think, is what he's most known for now.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, it's not an NBA jersey retirement. It's a team retirement. So you got to look at specifically what he did for that team. And I think without a doubt, he deserves to get his jersey number retired by Golden State.
Yes, I don't think the 76ers should retire his jersey because he didn't do anything.
Oh, the Sixers going to ever retire another jersey ever again? I didn't even want to put that in the rundown. Oh, my God. So thank God for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh, good Lord. Since we brought this up, here's another impromptu topic. What the hell is going on with the Philadelphia 76ers?
They're done. What did I tell you a month ago? Put a coffin in them, put it on Wells Fargo Center, and tell them, see you in 5 years. Their franchise is completely done. They need to get rid of Paul George. They need to send Joel Embiid to a permanent hospital where they can pay him to stay there. And they just need to move forward with Tyrese Maxey because that organization is a complete shit show.
Yeah, you can stick a fork in the 76ers. They are done as
and I defended the process. For the record, I defended it. I thought taking the NBA worked. I thought it was the right move. I defended Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. I defended Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler. But you know what? When Kawhi Leonard went ding, 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 and hit that shot in Game 7 of 2019, I came on my radio show at the time the next day. And I said, that's it. The Sixers franchise is over. You don't recover from a game-breaking loss like that. And what happened the very next year or two? Ben Simmons is right underneath the basket. Game 7, Eastern Conference Finals against the Atlanta Hawks in Philadelphia.
That was actually 2021 in the conference semifinals.
Yes, 2 years later. And Ben Simmons ends up forgoing the layup, and that was the end of the Philadelphia 76ers franchise as we know it. What did I say this past offseason when they went and got Paul George? And everybody said, including our man Seaboss, I think they could be the third best team in the East. I said, they'll barely make the play-in. If not, they're not even going to make the playoffs because Joel Embiid will not even play 40 games.
Yeah.
And here we are, ladies and gentlemen.
Think about this. The Chicago Bulls are positioned to make.
And the Bulls have lost, 8 games in a row?
Well, they just beat the 76ers last night.
Yay, they beat the Sixers. Yay.
Stick a fork in them. They are done. Joel Embiid is not the superstar we thought he was, but I'll tell you.
He needs to retire. He needs to retire. He's not even in the conversation as one of the 10 best big men to ever play the sport of basketball anymore.
No, I'd put him in the Greg Oden category.
Well, he's not that bad, but I get your sentiment. In terms of injuries, yes, he certainly was more. Thing is, he's so talented. He's so good. But he needs a team that will manage him. You know, if he could go to a team like San Antonio when they get Wemby back, and he sits there and plays half the games. He only plays home games. That's a scenario for Embiid. He literally just needs to play home games and play about 20 minutes a game.
Yeah, which sending positive thoughts to San Antonio because what I was loving what Wemby was doing with De'Aaron Fox. That sucks that he's out.
But it's going to open the door for a Golden State or somebody to capitalize down there in that bottom of the West.
And Greg Popovich is not coming back this season.
Well, that's a win for them. Greg Popovich doesn't need a return at all. Get rid of that old man who hasn't been a relative coach in a decade like Bill Belichick.
Anyway, but getting back to the Sixers, you say it was the Kawhi shot in Game 7 that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I actually say it was Ben Simmons in that Game 7 against Atlanta.
Well, Ben Simmons officially put it in, but it started with the Kawhi Leonard shot. They never recovered because they should have never let Jimmy Butler walk out the door. They said, we have to pay Tobias Harris. What the hell did Tobias Harris ever do?
Nothing. Although he's helping the Pistons do well this season. But anyway, enough about the Pistons. I don't know what to tell you about the 76ers anymore. I really don't.
Let's talk about a real team in Philadelphia. Let's talk about the potential NFL rule changes that, excuse me, as I'm getting all worked up here, that are potentially coming to the NFL this season, including the potential tinker to the kickoff, as well as the Green Bay Packers really want to try to ban the most unstoppable play in the history of the National Football League because they can't run it right.
Yeah. I don't know anything about the plan to tinker the kickoff because I liked it.
Okay, so they're basically saying, we may, take the touchback and put it at the 35-yard line. Here's my solution, because I know kickoff returns are still down. You don't need to move the touchback up. You know what you need to do? Just move. Excuse me. What they need to do is...
We're both coughing our brains out tonight.
What they need to do is they need to take the kicker and move him back 5 or 10 yards. If you move the kicker back, you're going to get more returns in the landing zone. When we actually had kickoffs last year, guess what? It worked. I don't know why everybody hated the new kickoff. You know why everybody hated it? Because there were still a lot of touchbacks. When we actually had kickoffs, they worked. Think about the play with the Cowboys where Devontae Turpin took that kickoff against the Commanders. We had plenty of other exciting kickoff plays. We just did not get enough of them.
Yeah, I enjoyed the kickoffs last season. So I wouldn't change it. But in terms of the tush push, I don't know what Green Bay's problem is. By the way, speaking of the Green Bay Packers, shout out to Tom Grossi, who raised $1 million for charity, Children for Fallen Patriots. I watched all of his streams. It was incredible. So he is a huge Green Bay Packers fan. He's trying to get to 1 million subscribers on YouTube. He won NFL Fan of the Year in 2023, I believe it is. So huge shout out to him. But in terms of this, I think this is just the Packers being petty.
By the way, you want to know the hypocrisy of this? Guess who agreed the tush push should be banned? You'll never guess.
The Chiefs?
No, you'll never guess.
The Rams?
Buffalo. They run the damn play.
Yeah.
They're like, Kansas City stopped it, so we need to ban it. Buffalo, learn how to run it right. But by the way, even if they do, just we need to ban it. It's such a dangerous play. We'll just do it without the pushing because half the time nobody even pushes Jalen Hurts.
I think this is just Green Bay being petty.
I'm surprised it wasn't Washington because Frankie Louisville had a jump over the pile. Guess what? We don't have 100% success rate on this play like many people think we do. We just do it better than others.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with it. What I do have a problem with is this.
So this is under the radar. No one is talking about this. I don't know how this story keeps getting buried. This is a major story.
And it's not, we're missing part of the equation here because it's not just that the college football playoff could be expanded to 14 or 16 teams, but the Big Ten and the SEC want at least 4 guaranteed spots in the playoff.
I love it.
For them. I hate that part.
Get the better teams in. We don't even need the Big 12. We don't need the Mountain West. We don't need all these other Mickey Mouse conferences because that's what they are. This really should be, if you want to expand it, in my opinion, this really should be 4 SEC teams, 4 Big 10 teams, and the rest of the 6, they can come from the Big 12, they can come from the SEC, they can come from the Big 10, they can come from the Mountain West, they can come from wherever. Just pick the best teams.
I don't want the SEC and Big Ten to have 4 guaranteed.
Why? Because you want to watch bad football? I want to watch the best teams in the country. The 12 out of the 16 teams. At least 12 of them are in one of those two conferences.
Notre Dame showed they belonged. Penn State showed they belonged.
Oh, Penn State's in the Big Ten.
I know. I get it. Arizona State showed they belonged.
Well, did they? They had an incredible comeback in the fourth quarter. Other than that, they were getting their doors blown off. They're a one-year wonder. They really didn't belong. Boise State did not belong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Boise, once they stepped up, and I don't know how they got a first-round bye. That was dumb.
So here's the one thing.
That's what college football needs to do, is get rid of the first-round byes. Because think about this. None of the teams who had byes advanced. They all lost.
With 16 teams, you'd get rid of the bye. I think 14, you'd have to have at least 1 or 2 byes. Here's the other thing that I do like about this format, though. If they go through with it, this is the only reason why I'd be okay with it. You would essentially, from what I've read and heard, they would basically, for the most part, get rid of the committee and get rid of conference championship games, which they absolutely need to do. There was no point in playing Penn State versus Oregon. Do you want to know why? Because your team watched the game and benefited from losing.
That's true. But if you do this with the 4 guaranteed spots, that ruins the point of like Ohio State, Michigan, or some of these other rivalry games.
Well, they're already, in my opinion, ruined by the 12-team format. So you might as well just expand it.
I mean, yeah, Ohio State still ended up getting in despite the second loss to Michigan. So I hear you, but it's like, if we're going to get these non-conference games, like I know Ohio State's going to play Alabama shortly in the regular season. Like this season, Ohio State is hosting Texas. You got Michigan playing at Oklahoma. You don't want to diminish some of these big non-conference games by going, well, we got 4 guaranteed spots. What the hell?
This may be the biggest where Braden was right in history. Because what did I say when they expanded the college football playoff to 12 teams? Why was I so against it? Number one, I said it's going to diminish the rivalries in college football. And I said, number two, college football is going to turn into the NFL essentially for college kids, and the college football playoff is going to turn into a mini quasi March Madness. That's what this is. That's what the sport is turning into. It's turning into the NFL on Saturdays, where the regular season games mean a lot, but they matter. NFL games will matter more than college. But the college football playoff is going to be their version of March Madness.
Yeah, and they started doing that by giving the higher seeds home games in the first round. So
here's the other thing. If they expand this, what I would want to see personally is 2 things. Number one is you start the season a week earlier. And number 2 is you get rid of the conference championship play we already mentioned. And you start the playoff and you pretty much end it January 1st. The college football national championship game this year was too late. No one gave a rip about it because we were already in the NFL playoffs.
Yeah.
Once you get to the NFL playoffs, I don't care how good of a brand college football is. By the way, it was on MLK Day. Nobody cared because it was on MLK Day. We just came off the NFL playoffs in the divisional round. People were gearing up for the conference championship games in the Super Bowl, not the college football national championship game.
Plus, it was on a Monday, which I also don't like. I would try and do the national championship on a Saturday. But
yeah, even a Friday night would not be a horrible idea.
Yeah, I think college basketball has kind of the same issue because they do their national championship on the Monday because the Final Four is on Friday and Saturday, I think it is.
Well, they kind of have to, because are you really going to have the Saturday team play Sunday? I mean, unless you make the Final Four Thursday, Friday, and the national championship on Sunday.
Yeah, I
So
guess.
they kind of have to. Like, they don't really have a choice. It's kind of like the NBA Finals and the World Series, where there are games on the weekday. Football is different because it's one game.
Right. I mean, the national championship is just one game, though.
Yeah, but again, like, so the Final Four, you have 2 games on Saturday. The only choice you would make is push that to Friday and move the game to Sunday. That's the only other option they have.
Yeah, because they're not going to push it off by a week because they want to get everybody out of the host city.
And you're not going to force teams to play a back-to-back, obviously, for the national championship.
No, that would be a horrible product.
Speaking of somebody that got it right, I argue this could have been our leadoff tonight, because I think this is a huge story. The fact that on a night that there was basketball everywhere, including national basketball on TNT, so it wasn't like there was not anything on. The Four Nations NHL game between Canada and U.S., which I know nothing about hockey, and even I was watching this game, had the most viewership ever viewed for a national hockey game ever.
Yes. I don't think this actually, as far as I know, this wasn't an NHL game, because this was during their All-Star break.
But it's still part of the National Hockey League.
Yes. It had NHL players, but I think this was outside of the NHL. It took the place of the All-Star weekend.
Yeah, but again, it's part of the NHL because it was broadcasted by ESPN because of their broadcasting rights with the NHL.
But either way, the game was incredible.
Yes.
And the U.S. and Canada put on an absolute show. Jordan Binnington must love playing in pressure situations at the TD Garden, because he turned back into the 2019 version of himself when the Blues beat the Bruins in 7 games in the 2019.
Sean McDonough mentioned that a couple times. And for the record, again, this is the first time I've really ever watched a majority of a hockey game in a long time. I thought Sean McDonough is right up there with Doc Emmerich. I mean, I thought he was fantastic on the microphone for ESPN. And I thought the NHL really did a good job introducing its players. And again, as I mentioned last week, I think this works for hockey. I think this is a success for hockey. I think patriotism and the Four Nations and stuff, because hockey has always been a Canadian sport. This is how much I know about hockey, Josh. I really did not know Sidney Crosby was on Team Canada.
Yeah.
I did not know that. So, like, hockey has always been the Canadian sport. The Canadians have always felt like that was their edge over the United States. That's why I feel like it does work in hockey. You're in a very emotional environment in a hockey town in Beantown, the TD Garden in Boston. I think it works for hockey. There's a lot of talk about should the NBA or even the NFL Pro Bowl try to duplicate this. No, leave this alone. This will work for hockey. This is hockey's thing. It's clearly worked. I think they should run it back a year from now. And I do think that, for the record, not to bring politics into it, but what's going on right now between Canada and U.S. with their prime ministers and our president, I do think that stuff does matter. And I think it brought into this a little bit. I don't think it would work for the NBA because, as I said last week, I don't feel like the NBA players care as much about the pride of defending U.S. versus Canada, because it's always been a U.S. sport, where hockey to me is seen as a Canadian sport. That to me is a big difference.
So they won't be able to run it next year because you got the Winter Olympics.
Oh, okay. That's why they were talking about 2 years from now, maybe running it back.
Yes, because you got the Winter Olympics. So that's going to cause of
Well, the
natural.
Winter Olympics is basically 4 nations as well, though, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah, because everybody goes and plays for their home country.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it was an incredible game to watch. And of course, it was McDavid that scored the game winning goal. He won the Conn Smythe Trophy last year in the Stanley Cup final, even though the Oilers lost the series. That's how good Connor McDavid is. And, you're talking about how good Sean McDonough was on the broadcast for the championship. He was just as good for Game 7 between the Oilers and Panthers last year for the Stanley Cup final, which I think those two games, Four Nations final and Panthers Oilers Game 7, were pretty close in terms of viewership, if I remember reading
I think
that
the Four
correctly.
Nations got a couple million more. I think the Panthers Florida game, I think, got 7 million. I think the Four Nations got 9 million. There's two things to this. Number one, this number for the NHL, especially hockey, is tremendous. I mean, the NBA Finals, unless it includes Lakers, Cavs, will probably not reach this number. Um,
No.
the other thing, though, and here's the thing about hockey, the NHL, as great as everybody talked about hockey for 3-4 days, the fact we are talking about this because we only do a show once a week on a Tuesday show. If we did a daily show, we would have talked about this on Thursday, we would have talked about it on Friday, and it would have been the end of it. The NHL, to me, though, still has work to do where it's like they need to capitalize on this momentum. They need to make hockey more mainstream. And it's like, it sort of was like this happened, and now everybody goes back to their respective corners and starts talking football off season.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? You talk about how hockey is the Canadian sport. A Canadian team hasn't won the Stanley Cup in like 30 years or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Edmonton almost did, but because they came back from a 3-0 deficit to force a Game 7, but of course they lost to the Panthers. And before that, the last Canadian team to reach the Cup final was Montreal in 2021 when they lost to Tampa Bay in 5 games in a really weird series where both teams were from the Eastern Conference. And yeah, it was just kind of strange in that sense.
You know what I found personally, and again, this is coming from a non-hockey guy. This is probably why I still have an issue with hockey. I think hockey can be really exhilarating, really exciting for the last 5 minutes / overtime of a really close, intense game. I don't think hockey gets exciting until really that point where it's sort of late in the game. And I still think it's very hard to find the damn puck.
I think that's partially because you're not as avid of a hockey fan as somebody like me. Like, I find it very easy to follow the puck, and that's partially because I go to a lot of games and I watch games on TV, so I able to identify it. But I can understand your issue. Like, maybe on TV they should put like a yellow circle around the puck.
They really should. It would make it so much easier.
Yeah, because it's this little black thing on the ice. But, well,
this is a story. No, again, this is another story. And then I'll let you go. But I just want to say this. This is another story that, to me, could be the top of our list. This is a major story that is getting completely swept under the rug and barely covered by anybody outside of awful announcing. I don't understand this. The ESPN pretty much kicked Major League Baseball to the curb after having their media rights for 30 plus years, when baseball is, in my opinion, their biggest boom period easily in the last half decade.
I think I partially know the reason why. And she plays for the Indiana Fever. She was the number 1 pick in the WNBA draft last year. She wears number 22, Caitlin Clark. I think the WNBA is gonna start taking over ESPN. Because you got, Golden State is coming into the league this season. Toronto is coming in. Portland is coming in. Cleveland is coming in. I think you're going to get a lot more teams, and ESPN wants to capitalize on that. I remember last year, the WNBA finals between New York and Minnesota, the viewership numbers were huge for that series.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. ESPN doesn't see the viewership numbers with Major League Baseball going up and up. I think partially because it's going to be Dodgers. And, people are going to get sick and tired of that. Kind of like, when the Patriots ruled in the NFL and the Chiefs are kind of ruling for the most part. I know your Eagles just won the Super Bowl, but you get what I'm saying.
Well, the NFL viewership doesn't change.
Do you kind of get what I'm saying, though?
No, because the NFL viewership doesn't change.
Okay, so maybe that's a bad example. But my point, though, is if Major League Baseball is just going to push Dodgers.
And Yankees, and maybe occasionally the Phillies or a Boston.
Yes.
I understand your point. I just think, the baseball now is starting to get into a younger viewership and fan base. We see that by the changes Rob Manfred has made. I am very interested more so to see where baseball lands. Do they take this opportunity to go to a streamer like Amazon Prime? Does a CBS or an NBC that's getting back into the NBA, obviously NBC is, do they complement and say, we want sports essentially year-round, where baseball is sort of that nice supplement after the NBA season ends? I think the MLB has a real opportunity here to expand their media partnership by working off, they already have the deal with Fox, obviously. They have a deal with Turner. To me, go get a streamer, go get Amazon for a few games, go get another major network, a CBS that has a Paramount Plus streaming service already built in, an NBC that has, a Peacock service already built in. And that, was a great opportunity for baseball.
Yeah. I think this is partially Major League Baseball's fault, though, because they don't advertise. They don't market. You got guys like Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, Mike Trout in his heyday, not as much anymore, but Bryce Harper, Adley Rutschman for the Baltimore Orioles, Gunnar Henderson, guys like that.
Also, ESPN has significantly toned down their coverage of Sunday Night Baseball. It used to, remember with John Miller and Joe Morgan back in the day? It used to be a huge deal, national TV, one game a week. We got the big crew. They don't do that anymore, really, as much. Sometimes it's buried on ESPN2. They don't have the major announcers anymore. That could be something where I think baseball could do. Maybe Amazon says, let's do, I know they already are doing NBA Thursday night once the NFL season ends. Maybe after that, they just make Thursday night their sports night. Let's do a baseball game. Maybe CBS can say, hey, or NBC, hey, after basketball season's over, let's do a Sunday Night Baseball on that network. I think more national standalone TV games on a major network like that could help.
Possibly. And I think also part of the problem was most of the Sunday night games were Yankees Red Sox or Dodgers.
Oh, it was Yankees Red Sox every 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Or it was Dodgers Braves or, Dodgers Phillies, somebody like that,
I don't know if baseball would be willing to give up the wild card round to a streamer. Again, I would like to see a CBS, who really is more known for their NFL and March Madness, to sort of promote March Madness with baseball returning. Like I think that would keep CBS sort of more, if you will, sports relevant year round, because outside of the NFL and March Madness, outside of the Masters, they don't have a ton.
No, but going back to my original point, I think this is ESPN saying we want to push the WNBA. I think that's the part not a lot of people are going to talk about, but I think it's a big piece of this.
Josh, I've been waiting. Oh, you know what? Go on. Finish your thought. I thought you were done. That's
because like I said, like the national championship last year between Iowa and South Carolina blew away the men's national championship between UConn and Purdue.
It blew away any MLB wildcard game, to your point.
Exactly. And like I said, the WNBA finals between Minnesota and New York had great viewership numbers. And I think a lot of the regular season games, that were on ESPN got great viewership numbers, especially those, excuse me, that featured the likes of Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, when Indiana and Chicago matched up, whether that was on ESPN or CBS, because they do broadcast WNBA games.
No, that's a good take. I did not think of that.
Yeah.
But I've been waiting to tell you this all day. I want your soul.
Oh my God. I don't know what to make of this.
I know what to make of it, and I freaking love it. I love it. The final boss is back.
Yeah.
And he is back to take some souls and dig some O's, the Undertaker would say.
Do you think this is leading? I don't think this is leading to a match between Rock and Cody, though.
Oh, I got it all figured out. I sat there Friday night in my little brain. I didn't go to bed till 2 o'clock in the morning on Saturday morning because my head was spinning, thinking about this, going, The Rock wants Cody Rhodes' soul. What the fuck does that mean? Then I sat there and I thought about it. And I thought about it. And I thought about all the Cody crybabies last year who said, Cody needs to finish his story. Guess what, kids? There's a man who is a 16-time world champion. His name is John Cena. And do you remember what that man said at the Royal Rumble press conference? He said he is going to the Elimination Chamber. He is winning the Elimination Chamber. He is winning the main event of WrestleMania 41 because it is best for business. Has John Cena ever said anything about something being best for business before? No. What has the storyline been in WWE since like 2017? John Cena can no longer win a big match. He hasn't won a big match in 2,000-something days. Well, you know what? Everybody's pissed off because John Cena, like myself, very pissed off that John Cena did not start off his retirement tour full time. He was not at Monday Night Raw on February 3rd in Cleveland, Ohio. He left the Royal Rumble. He's still filming a movie. He's going to the Elimination Chamber. John Cena realizes this is his last chance to win a world championship in WWE. Cody Rhodes is going to tell The Rock he is not going to sell his soul. There is somebody that's going to sell their soul, and the main event of WrestleMania 41 will feature the American Nightmare defending his championship against a heel, John Cena, with the final boss in his corner. John Cena will walk out of WrestleMania 41, your new undisputed WWE champion, and Cody Rhodes' downfall will begin. That is booking option number one. There is a booking option number two that I will get to in a little bit.
I see where you're going with that, but we did have that interaction with Punk and Cody where Punk said to him, I'm not like your other friends where they stab you in the back because I'm going to stab you in the front.
That is booking option number 3. That's not even booking option number 2.
Let me guess what booking option is for number 2 is for you. Does it involve a Scottish warrior?
No, it does not.
Really? Because I could see it be that Drew McIntyre is the one that that gets behind The Rock, and he beats Cody Rhodes in the main event of WrestleMania 41 and walks out the new WWE champion.
Booking option number 2 is the American Nightmare does sell his soul to the final boss. Corporate Cody, he sells out. And guess who's there to save the day, everybody? That very same 16-time world champion, Super Cena, comes back one more time to save the WWE from corporate champion Cody Rhodes. And we get Cody Rhodes and the final boss teaming up against the 16-time world champion, a babyface John Cena, who then would become a 17-time world champion.
Okay. I thought for sure Drew McIntyre would factor into this.
Booking option number 3, I agree with you, is CM Punk selling his soul to Dwayne the final boss, Rock Johnson, defeating Cody Rhodes. There goes Cody Rhodes' downfall. Booking option number 4 is somehow, some way, some involvement of the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, who gets involved in this story somehow. And we could even get a babyface Roman Reigns versus a heel Cody Rhodes.
But that would make no sense because what's the point of the men's elimination chamber then?
Because the final boss enters the elimination chamber match himself, and he weighs down for Cody Rhodes.
Huh. Could happen. So if I were laying out the card for this show, I would have women's elimination chamber open the show. Then I would do that tag team match, Tiffany and Trish against Nia and Candice. Then I would do Rock Cody. And then I would do the men's elimination chamber match. And in the main event.
Oh, I disagree with you completely on this.
The unsanctioned match.
I disagree with you completely on this.
Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, unsanctioned, Toronto.
That match is going on second or third. It has zero chance to main event this show. There's 2 options for the main event. It's either the Rock and Cody segment or the men's elimination chamber match.
Hey, that's just me. But I really don't care about the tag team match because this Tiffany Strine Nia Jax story is just dragging on, and I don't give a shit about it.
It's a way to get Trish Stratus back on the card in Toronto. Tiffy's going to get finally her big win over Nia, and she'll then transition as a babyface to take on heel Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 41.
But when I look at the women's elimination chamber, I mean, we just got new women's tag team champions in Liv and Raquel. So I don't think Liv is going to win. You got Bianca and Naomi, where I think it's going to be revealed that Naomi was the attacker on Jade, which could open the door for Bianca. You got Bayley and Roxanne, which I think that's going to happen at Mania. I really do. So there's not like a clear-cut person that you're like, they should be the favorite. And to add on to the confusion of all this, you got Rhea Ripley defending her title against Io Sky on Raw next week after Elimination Chamber. So it's almost like, what's the point of Elimination Chamber then? I don't get it.
So Here's where.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot about Alexa Bliss, but I think she's gonna get caught up with Wyatt stuff. So
Here's where, and I've been a fan of Triple H's booking the last 2 years. This is one of those ones where, to me, it would be a massive mistake. And I don't get outraged that often. If Bianca Belair wins the Elimination Chamber, the whole attacking Jade Cargill storyline to me makes absolutely zero freaking sense. Bianca Belair should be the one revealed who attacked Jade Cargill, not Naomi, because Bianca Belair gave the tag team titles to Naomi willingly. If Naomi was really the one who attacked Jade Cargill, why would Bianca so willingly be willing to give up the tag team titles? Bianca wanted to get Jade Cargill out of her way because Jade Cargill was taking up too much of her spotlight. Because Bianca Belair used to be the popular girl, the EST, the SmackDown Women's Champion, the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion, all these accolades. Jade Cargill came in, stole her spotlight, became the more popular woman. That is the story they need to tell, not Jade versus Naomi. You can have them both be revealed as the attackers. I'd even be okay with that, but not just Naomi. I think if they do Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley and pretty much waste the entire Jade Cargill attack storyline.
Then what do you do in terms of who wins the Elimination Chamber? Because I don't think it's going to be Roxy. I don't think it's going to be Bayley because I think they're on a collision course to me at Mania, like I said. It's not going to be Alexa because Alexa is going to get involved with Wyatt stuff, which where have the Wyatts gone? They've disappeared. It's not going to – I don't think it's going to be Liv because she just won the women's tag team titles.
Here's what you do. There are many options, in my opinion. One of those options is Liv Morgan. And you have Io Sky, you have Rhea Ripley have a disqualification where Liv Morgan comes in, she interferes, and you have a triple threat match at WrestleMania 41 between Rhea, Liv, and Io, where Io can pin Liv. Rhea Ripley does not have to take the fall. She still loses the championship. You can move Rhea Ripley out of the division. Io Sky becomes the new champion. That is one option. The other option is, and I did not agree with you at the Royal Rumble at all, but the way they're pushing it, why not put a rocket strap to Roxanne Perez? Why not give Roxanne Perez, fresh out of NXT, one of the biggest matches in WrestleMania history against Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship? And why not have Roxanne Perez become one of the fastest rising newborn stars in the women's division by her knocking off Rhea Ripley? Based off her Royal Rumble performance and based off the way they've been booking her at the Elimination Chamber, I think she would be viewed as a credible threat. The other option is, I think you're just dismissing Alexa Bliss. I would not dismiss Alexa Bliss from winning this Elimination Chamber and going on to face Rhea Ripley as a former Women's World Champion. And for the Wyatt family to possess her, for her to be revealed as the new leader of the Wyatt family, and for her to use her Wyatt family powers to take down Rhea Ripley and win the Women's World Championship.
See, I don't really want to see that story because, like, I liked what Bray Wyatt did, but the Wyatt sick stuff just isn't for me personally. So I couldn't, for me, I just couldn't quite sink my teeth into something like that. Whereas your other option, Roxanne versus Rhea, I would definitely take that. But as much as you don't want to see it, I would love to see Rhea versus Bianca. A lot of fans are pushing.
I want to see it, just not under these circumstances. I wanted to see it 2 years ago. I wanted to see it even last year. I thought could have been a possibility. Now when Bianca Belair has been a tag team champion for half this year, and then all of a sudden Jade Cargill gets attacked, and now we're going to put Bianca in the Women's World. Why? That to me makes absolutely no sense with her character. That's like she's been wasting 6 months of the tag division. There has to be a payoff with Jade Cargill somewhere. Unless the storyline is that Jade's attacker doesn't get revealed until after WrestleMania, and it turns out to be Bianca, and Bianca beats Rhea, and Bianca says, well, I became a champion without you. And that becomes her major title program of Rhea and Jade going into the spring and going into SummerSlam.
Yeah.
That I would be on board with. But Rhea has to lose to Bianca. If Bianca just has a title match against Rhea and loses, it makes no sense.
That I agree with you. I don't even want to talk about the tag team match because it's just kind of there. Sorry. And I don't care about Nia Jax versus Tiffany Stratton. That story has just been dragging on and on and on. It's been a snooze fest. The men's elimination, or no, you want to talk unsanctioned match first?
Well, we already kind of talked about the men's chamber. Let's talk about unsanctioned.
Well, I thought there was a chance they could do this match at WrestleMania.
You and I both, but I think we're finally going to get the match that you have been wanting. Maybe not the full version of the match that you have been wanting, but an RKO to a certain KO is Randy Orton's going to finally return here and help Sami Zayn win this barn burner of a freaking match where these two guys will kill it down there in Toronto. They will have an incredible match. Randy Orton will hit Kevin Owens with an RKO, and we will get Randy Orton against Kevin Owens at WrestleMania.
And that match if we do that match, I will tell you right now, that will be a candidate for Mania match, or like match of Mania, however you want to say it. I think Kevin Owens, Randy Orton would be that good.
I don't know what they do with Sammy at WrestleMania. That's my problem with it now.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of I'm loving this heel version of Kevin Owens. First of all, his car needs to go into the WWE Hall of Fame because think about this. During his feud with Cody Rhodes, and now during this feud with Sami Zayn, he's cut some of his best promos from that car. Like, it's so good. Every time they show him out in his car, you're like, what is he going to say to this time?
Because he's a man speaking the truth. That's what he is.
But here's the thing. I love the way he's going about it. Like, yes, he's speaking the truth, but he's doing it in an asshole way. I'm loving.
Well, doing it in an asshole way, or is he just doing it in the way that he can do it? I mean, seriously, we all rented our car.
But that's what I'm saying. I think in this case, the two things you just mentioned, the way he knows how and an asshole way, are kind of like this. Like, they're basically
him and Drew McIntyre are basically playing the same character to a T.
Yes. I'd love to see the two of them be a tag team at some point, but keep these same characters. It would be so good. Call them like the truth tellers. Oh, yeah. I would give them the tag team titles. But actually, speaking of Drew McIntyre, I'm curious. If he does not win the men's elimination chamber,
LA Knight. That's the Mania match.
For the U.S. Championship?
No, just straight up one-on-one. Like LA Knight and AJ Styles a year ago. LA Knight, Drew McIntyre is a Mania-worthy match.
So you don't think Shinsuke drops the title to LA Knight then?
God, I hope he does. He's at the worst championship reign of all time, but no, he won't.
I mean, we talked about Cena. We talked about Punk. McIntyre's the wild card for me in this whole thing. Because I could see him going after Jimmy Uso again. And possibly that being something they do at Mania.
Yeah, maybe it's a fatal four-way. Jimmy, LA Knight, Drew, Shinsuke for the U.S. title.
Maybe. The the other thing I'm curious about, because you got Cena, you got Punk, you got Drew, you got Seth. I'm very curious to see what Seth does at Mania. I think it's gonna be something with Roman. But really, the one I want to talk about is the one from Cleveland, although we don't claim him, because
who does he screw to set up the Mania match with? That's the question.
there's so many options for him. Like, here's my thinking, and a lot of people have said, "Oh no, you're crazy." I think it could be Logan Paul against CM Punk at WrestleMania.
No.
I really do. Let me tell you why.
Go ahead.
Who was it that threw CM Punk out of the Rumble?
It was Logan Paul.
It was Logan Paul. Then they had a promo battle. I think it was the week after the Rumble, if I remember correctly. And then last night they got into another promo battle, and Logan Paul slapped CM Punk. It feels like they're sprinkling those seeds that could be Punk against Paul at WrestleMania. Maybe I'm reading into it too much.
No, I agree with you, and I've seen that sentiment. To me, it just feels like Punk is due for a bigger match. And no disrespect to Logan Paul, but it does feel like Punk needs to be involved in a main event this year, or at least close to it in some way or form. Like, no disrespect to Logan Paul. Whoever gets him between Cena and Punk and Rollins, it does sort of feel like a letdown compared to what they could have had. Think about the thing I want to talk about in this match is the history between the men involved. You have obviously Rollins' history with Logan Paul. You have the whole essential triangle with Punk, Rollins, McIntyre, Priest, and everything they went for over the World Championship. CM Punk and John Cena's history. Seth Rollins and John Cena's history. Like, anything
Punk and Rollins history.
Punk and Rollins. Like, anything
Punk
can
and
happen.
McIntyre.
Though, by the way, those are the two that I think should start the chamber. Punk and McIntyre. Let's renew that feud. I could see Punk against McIntyre or Rollins starting the chamber.
I could see it. Jeez. Sorry. Priest is the other wild card in this, because I've heard the plan for Mania is McIntyre against Priest.
I think they moved off that. I
Yeah.
really do.
And I think that's for two reasons. One, I think McIntyre should get a bigger match than that. Jesus Christ. But I also think Priest should get a bigger match than that. Damian Priest has proven that he is a main event caliber guy.
You know what? He's the guy that should take the belt off Shinsuke. Because I think LA Knight and Drew need to be in a little bit of a non-title feud. I think if you give Priest the belt, I think Priest could do some good things with that U.S. title.
I'd love to see Priest go after the Braun Breaker for the Intercontinental.
Well, Priest is on SmackDown now.
That's true.
By the way, Braun Breaker, AJ Styles book at WrestleMania 41.
I'm not so sure about that, because Finn Balor seems to have an interest.
Okay, we'll make it a triple threat. AJ and Braun Breaker will be in the same ring. I'm telling you that.
I would take it. I've seen the rumored match being AJ Styles versus Finn Balor at Mania.
And then that was quickly dismissed. I doubt it. I think a triple threat, like you said, could be likely. We'll see. A lot of things are going to shape up here post-Elimination Chamber.
Yes.
But
in terms of my picks for this, with the women, I want to pick Roxanne, but I think she's going to get caught up with Bayley. So as much as you don't want it, I think it's going to be Bianca. And then, sure, for the women's tag team match, I'll go with Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus. I'll say Trish pins Candice LeRae. Whoop-de-frickin' do. unsanctioned match, I'll go with Sami Zayn because of an RKO from the Viper to Mr. Kevin Owens. And in the men's elimination chamber match, I'm going to go with the Scottish Warrior, Drew McIntyre.
You called the Royal Rumble. We'll see if you can do it again. I have, for the Women's Elimination Chamber, I'm going to go with, I can't believe I scolded you over this a month ago. Roxanne Perez is going to win the Women's Elimination Chamber. I agree with you. Tiffy pins Candice. Sammy pins Kevin Owens after the Randy Orton RKO. And in the Men's Elimination Chamber match, turning heel, the 16-time world champion. We finally get the dark side, the side that we cannot see. The final boss teams up with the leader of the C Nation and faces Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 41. CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns will be having their planned triple threat match.
See, that's why I didn't pick Cena, because it feels like the obvious pick. So I wanted to go with somebody that isn't as obvious.
All right, well, that's all the time we got tonight for Championship Rings. We'll be back next week. Thank you for joining us. Me and Josh appreciate it. Josh, you got any other words before we head out for the night?
I do not, no.
All right, we'll see you guys next week as we'll recap Elimination Chamber and all the other things in sports right here on Championship Rings.